Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. Our guest this week is Richard Farrand. He's a senior director at Conduent based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and is responsible for their APAC CX business and globally for resource planning. Richard's got a long history designing and managing CX solutions. He was the Global COO for all of the Bank of America IT and BPO systems, and before that, he was leading IT and BPO inside HSBC. We covered several angles in our discussion, but focused generally on CX design and how to improve an interaction that most of the time customers don't really want anyway. Okay, Richard, thanks for doing this podcast. It's great to have you on here as a guest. Now, I know most people don't really enjoy calling contact centers at all. You know, often it's because the reason they're calling is that they've got a problem, they're upset, that they can't find answers. But how can the CX managers create a better experience if we start from that assumption that the only reason that someone's calling is that they have a problem?
Thanks, Mark, and great to meet you today. It's a great question. I think actually, from a personal perspective, I think most people want a good service. So they want to get done what they want to get done. And, you know, agents can be navigators to that. I think dissatisfaction comes when the processes are poorly designed and when the customer doesn't get resolution. So, you know, in answer to your question, how can customers get a better experience? Then I think simplifying processes, empowering your frontline staff to deliver good service with propositions that are designed to meet the needs of the client. So, you know, I think there is maybe some negativity for call centers occasionally, but I don't think necessarily that is the norm. I think people generally are satisfied if they get done what they phone up to get done.
Okay, yeah, and I mean traditionally the contact center and the customer service function has always been seen as a cost to the organization. But how do we reposition that as, you know, a value add, like a center of expertise that can really support the brand and even like support the marketing effort of the company? I mean, do we need to reshape thinking around who we're even hiring into the contact center?
Well, I think you know, the contact centers are part of an overall client experience ecosystem now. You know, the service provision to customers has grown from face-to-face to online provision to contact centers and the like. And therefore, contact centers provide a great opportunity to provide a proper customer experience and not just not just a helpline or a channel for solving problems. And to your point, I think what we see is that contact centers give an opportunity for human to human contact with customers in a digitizing world where a lot of self-service is evident. So I think what the role of the contact center really is kind of the tip of the spear in many respects in terms of that client interaction, and I don't see necessarily that it should be viewed as a cost center per se, but it is the place where customers come into your organization. Therefore, the people that you're employing to provide that service are representing your brand in that moment.
Yeah, and so does that mean that, I mean, if we're talking about the people as more of a brand representative, I mean, is it important that we create more dynamic hiring processes? I mean, widen the talent pool that's available? And can things like work from home, can they factor in and help this?
Well, I think work from home is definitely, kind of talk of the town. I mean, the pandemic has driven a structural and behavioural change that wasn't there before that COVID-19 came along. We've always had work from home. It's not new. But because of COVID, it's become very much top of the agenda. It's not a nirvana, and there are pros and cons, but the industry is navigating through those pros and cons. In terms of expanding the talent pool, then I think a work from home proposition combined with a bricks and mortar offering as well, and maybe some hybrid solutions in the middle, can give you more flexibility in the offering you can give to potential employees, and make arrangements with them that will allow you to retain staff longer as their circumstances change, and to have access to different groups of individuals to come and work for you. So I think the whole dynamic of the environment to hire people, bring them into the organization, is changing and has changed. But I think that's a positive thing. It's a positive thing for securing new talent. It's a positive thing for retaining your existing talent. And it's a positive thing in terms of doing a good job for your customers. But I don't think there isn't a one size fits all that's going to emerge from the current scenario. And I think people are trying to figure out what's best for their organization, best for their clients, and importantly, best for their employees.
Yeah, because I think that there was an immediate emergency reaction to the pandemic, and that was contact centers that had people working 8-hour shifts in the contact center. They suddenly moved them into 8-hour shifts working from home. And do you think that we're now evolving from that into perhaps a more flexible use of people's time, maybe things like split shifts or part-time working? Are we maturing from that kind of emergency response into a sort of new, more flexible environment then?
So I think we definitely are. I think the days of 9 to 5 are long since gone, frankly. And many organizations you'll see offer flexible working to certain groups of individuals, whether that's reduced hours, 4-day weeks, or whatever. Again, to secure different pools of talent or to retain existing trained employees. But the core of what we do has to meet the demands of the service that's needed. And therefore, full-time work is part of that proposition. How that full-time work is deployed from a shift pattern point of view, from, whether it's, to your point, whether it's split shifts and the like, can now be designed in to, again, help our associates do a great job and meet their life needs, but also, help our clients in terms of delivering their services in an environment where, competition for labor is significant.
I just wanted to throw in a banking question as well, like combined with the customer service topic that we're talking about, because I know you've got a long history in banking, and if we look at the banks today that right at the all at the top of the customer service satisfaction charts, it's all brands like Monzo and Starling. It's all of the new digital challenger banks that are satisfying customers much more than the old legacy banks. And clearly that's because of their history. They've got branch networks, they've got legacy technology systems and all of this kind of stuff. But how do you build a customer-centric solution if you are coming from that legacy background? I mean, what should these traditional brands be doing to try and adapt and compete with the new challengers?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think banking is unique in having new entrants and challengers coming into their marketplace. And banking as an industry has made huge strides in the provision of service and how that service is provided. It's not, maybe not with it's certainly within my lifetime when branches were open. You went into a bank branch and it was open 9:30 till 3:30 on a Monday to Friday. And since then we've added contact centers, phone channels, chat, email, the whole way in which we interact with clients, not just in banking, has emerged in a very different way, and largely driven by technology, but also driven by what customers want to see. And I think if you look at companies who have grown up and are evolving from that legacy position, actually, they are doing a pretty good job, in my view, in terms of their digitization journey. in terms of the provision of online services and and of course the services that they provide from contact centres. So I think that the challenger banks, to use that terminology, are part of an overall ecosystem of financial services. They're players on the field of play, and the old guard, if you like, are certainly not laggards in the provision of new services, the desire for excellent customer service, and the investments that they're making to provide more client-centric and more effective service to their customers. So I think it's a very much a story of evolution, but the pace of change is significant. And I think if you look in the past, 2 to 3 years at the services that financial institutions are provided to their customers through the provision of mobile banking and the like, and not just banks, whether it's insurance companies, retailers, the world is becoming more digital, and that by the very nature of the technology that's being provided, new entrants find it easier to join the party, which is a good thing. It increases competition and keeps everybody on their toes, I think it's fair to say.
Okay, well, I mean, a minute ago you mentioned about customer service and the contact center kind of being at the tip of the arrow, and only the first sort of port of entry into the organization. And I think that if we look at the entire customer journey today, it's become longer and more complex. And you have the discovery of products, searching for more information, the transaction and purchase itself, and then the kind of ongoing support afterwards. And traditionally, they've all been different departments within an organization, so marketing, sales, advertising, customer service. When we start talking about holistic customer experience, how do we get all these different departments to actually work together, so that the marketing is in sync with the customer service function?
So you're right. Companies have worked in silos. And technology and data, and the growth in like a multi-channel environment means that they can't do that anymore, because they need a single view of the customer, not only to understand the relationship that they have with any individual customer in terms of the products and services that are being purchased from that customer, from that institution, but also to create value for them as an organization, create stickiness. Retaining a customer is much more effective than trying to get out there and win lots of new business. So I think key to the proposition, the contact center is only one entry point into an organization. And I'm sure we've all done this. You'll start a journey with a company online, and then you might find you want to ask a question, and then you chat to them, or you then do revert into the contact center. So I think key to all of this is the design of the proposition and designing that from a customer perspective. Companies are building towards creating a single view from a customer point of view, and then having their contact center and service proposition consolidated and integrated such that the customer isn't handed off and passed around an organization. Not always possible where you've got specialist functions or degrees of technical expertise required, but I think consolidating into the provision of service in a way that's matching the expectation of the customer, I think, is key. And of course, technology, data, how data is used to understand how customers are interacting with your organization, and how data can inform what the next best action with that client would be is significant and key, I think. And going back to that's a two-sided coin. Not only is that important from a client point of view, but it's also very important from an employee point of view. Data will help you drive out the best solution for for your agents and your employees, whether it's the skills they have, whether it's the working patterns they want to enjoy. We can use technology today to help design all of that so that it meets the demands of an employee, and also meets the expectations and demands of the customer. You bring all that together, and what happens is then you will retain more customers, you'll retain more employees. Hopefully, you'll get more revenue, and hopefully, your success as an organisation will be there for everybody to see.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point that you're making there, because something that I've talked about for years is that if you've got people working in customer experience, but all they're doing is watching the clock and they're not really engaged and they're not really feeling supported or interested, then how can they support a great customer experience? So it's interesting to see, you mentioning that, and very specifically saying that you need to lock these together, employee experience with customer experience.
Well, I think also the nature of the work that is done in companies has changed and is changing. The routine is more routine and is more pushed out, if that's the right expression, into the hands of the consumer themselves, which is a good thing. If you put the customer in control and they execute their own transaction, they're going to get done what they're going to get done. And therefore, their level of satisfaction with that particular interaction is going to be good. So it's important, I think, that we recognize the fact that the role of, in a contact center scenario, the role of the agent is to break from the routine, add value to the proposition, create those interactions. Problem solving is part of that. And you bring all of that together, and again, you'll get a good reputation for doing a good job. Now, that doesn't mean today that all customer service agents are not doing routine tasks online, because customers themselves will choose how they want to interact with you and how they want to execute a transaction. Not everybody wants to go online and make a payment. Some people want to phone up. Some people like that human-to-human interaction. And I think what we've seen over the past few years is that we've added capability and added capacity, and therefore activity levels have gone up. And the only way that those activity levels can be managed effectively or cost effectively is to automate some of the more routine transactions. So I think it's very interesting. I think it's very exciting for the world of CX. And certainly from I work for Conduent, and certainly from a Conduent point of view, we see fantastic opportunity to provide services in a sort of traditional contact center sense, if you like, but also those value-added services around digitization, around data analytics, and the like. And that's where, companies can, where I think we can help add value to companies, or they can help themselves in terms of understanding where customers are interacting with them and why, and engineering out breaks in that service such that I go back to my point that such that services are as simple as possible and customers get done what they phoned up to get done, and they're not left feeling, well, is somebody going to phone me back? Have I been handed off to another department? Satisfaction is driven by a sense of, I phoned up to do that, it got done, it was a good experience, I spoke to a nice person, and then I'll talk about that maybe to my friends in, at the sports club or whatever. I spoke to that company and they did a great job for me.
All right, Richard, so just to wrap up then, we've talked about several aspects here, customer service moving to customer experience, and the people, process and technology that goes into that. But what are some of the trends that you're really focusing on at the moment this year? And maybe, sort of spin it out in a year into the future. What should we be looking for?
Well, I think an overused term is digitization. And clearly, the pace of change is accelerated and accelerating. So people have to keep up. So to deliver value by investing wisely in terms of automation, in terms of their online presence and the like is key. So and the investments that we see in that area are significant, and I think those outcomes across all industries will shape the way in which customers receive services and then interact with those that are providing the services. So that would be point one. I think point two for me would be, again, a flavor of the month kind of conversation would be around data and how companies use data. Artificial intelligence, analytics, and the like are subjects which are evolving and are critical in terms of how companies will run their businesses moving forward. There's significant investment in that area that we're seeing as well. And then the last thing would be, we talked a little bit earlier about this, would be around channel integration to deliver a joined up proposition. If you can simplify the business from the outside in, so a customer sees a simplified, easy to use proposition with an organization that is set up to deliver great service to them, will not only help them buy more of your services, whatever that might be, but it'll also empower your employees and give them a great experience. So, crucial to the delivery of great service is the people that are delivering the service, the people at the front line in your organization, which are your employees. So, I think that would be my view.
Thanks for downloading the CX Files podcast. If you have a moment, please give us a star rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, because this really helps other people to find the podcast. If you have any suggestions for future guests, or ideas, people or topics, then please just find myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan on LinkedIn and send a suggestion.